The stairwell breathes like an animal in the cold, each exhale a cloud of dust and frost kicked from the cracked spine of the building. Pre-dawn blue seeps through a shattered window, and the metal of the machine gun smokes white as it warms to life under Mikhail's hands. His first burst is textbook, 3, maybe 4 rounds, then a pause to hear the echoes stacking off concrete, then another clean scythe, and for a moment the corridor beyond is a tunnel of chipped plaster and held breath. The shapes in the opposite doorway flatten, their hesitation all the permission Ivana needs. Her glove snaps in the air, a chop, then 2 fingers, and the squad bends toward the crossing that will make or break the morning. Boots scrape. Someone mutters a prayer that fogs in front of their teeth. The gun is supposed to be the metronome for this sprint, and Mikhail gives it what Ivana demanded, suppression, not showmanship. He knows the feel of feed palls in this cold, the way thickened oil drags and then gives. He anchors the side box with his elbow, hips the gun, and leans into the trigger with Summer's bored confidence. The barrel coughs and then stutters like a man swallowing glass. An angry clack, an empty click amplified in the well, and the plaster snow in the corridor freezes with the silence while 3 meters of tile under enfilade yawns wider. Ivana doesn't swear. She bleeds motion into urgency. Another gesture. Go, go. And then she tenses the whole stair by not moving for a heartbeat. She has counted steps, arcs, the German response from across the corridor and from the yard. Now she recalculates with a dead gun. 3 meters under enfilade is not a plan, it's a bet, and the pot just doubled. She lowers her radio with a grimace. The battery glow is a pathetic ember. Signaling is all hands now, and hands lie when they shake, so she bites off 2 seconds with her fingers and dares the building to keep time. Yuri is already on the box, because feeling the gun die is like feeling a friend go limp mid-argument. He slaps its dented lid and watches the belt exit yaw by a degree that shouldn't matter, and now does. The canvas slithers wrong, links glint under powder dust, and the starter tab sits a hair proud. He wants to yank with both hands, but he's the assistant gunner, and you don't tear at a jam like it insulted your mother. He yanks a glove instead. In that instant his breath-wet skin meets air, and the cold bites like teeth he can't see. -20 is an invisible hand closing over his fingers as he pins the belt near the tray. Feed lips have grown teeth overnight. Frost crystals make everything abrasive. Skin sticks, not like a joke, but like a choice you'll regret for days. He peels and hears fabric fiber give up faster than his fingertips do. A dot of blood pops bright, boils to red caramel in the air. Then frost takes it and makes it matte. He locks his jaw, because what can you do? Let the belt skate? And slides his raw thumb where links meet steel, and tells himself the cost is already paid. Mikhail leans just enough to see, breath gusting white onto the receiver, vapor curling and freezing on contact. Powell's catch, Powell's slip. The belt noses up a fraction where the rim wants to flare instead of glide, and he feels the bolt hang just shy of home. He could rip the cover, he could go for the tray, but ripping is time, and time is what Adler is buying for his men across the corridor. He taps the side with his gloved knuckle, a tiny signal to Yuri. Not yet, not loud, and he keeps the safety where his finger can find it, without looking. The stairwell is a mouth. Acoustics amplify every metallic attempt to lie. One wrong click and the opposite landing knows the truth about the gun. Plaster sifts from a ceiling wound, teased loose by the thunder of the first burst. Ivana's eyes flick. Mikhail, corridor, the dark hole across, the window on the yard where an MG line can lash this floor if it wakes. Her fingers slice low. Keep heads down. 3 seconds lost become 6 in this kind of fight. She writes that on her own palm and watches the window cut blue into white. Across the corridor, a lighter flares. It's a rude act in a war zone, and it writes a brief orange arc onto the silhouette of a man who thinks he's behind a wall of noise less honest than it looks. A cigarette glows, bobs, vanishes as the butt is crushed and twisted under a heel. It's a test more than a smoke. A man measuring silence, hunting for an answer in ember light, and the way air moves in a doorway with fear on either side. Yuri squints at the belt, his eyes water from cold and the up-close tang of mineral oil and cordite that refuses to leave this building. A kink telegraphs under a dirty wrap of cloth tape 3 handspans down the run like a healed scar in muscle. The belt snakes across broken tile toward him, canvas stiff as board, links black with a film that looks wet but isn't. He remembers the drop outside that put the dent in this box while the snow was still clean. He didn't insist they swap it. He feels that choice pulse under his torn thumb as he threads the canvas toward the tray. He shifts his left hand to feed straight because that's what you do. Manuals drilled it. Left hand guides, right hand balances, and pushes the gun so it doesn't walk. The dent spills the belt at a devil's angle. Even a straight belt would yaw entering the tray like this. This belt is kinked and wants to tell a bigger lie. Yuri tilts, contradicts metal with flesh, and wishes he had more hand to do it with, the bones in his wrist humming with effort. Mikhail hears his own caution turn to arrogance in his head, a summer range voice advising short bursts, controlled bursts, let the steel live longer. The winter voice underneath says, hurry. He keys that contradiction into a plan that is patience painted over panic. He keeps the top cover down. He eases the charging handle back a thumb's width, enough to see brass wedged crooked, oil gone gray with crystals. The last cartridge tried to present nose up. The feedway bit into it, and now the gun is choking on one of its own teeth while a corridor demands a choir. Ivana wants to throw a man across the corridor to keep the Germans honest, give Adler a silhouette to aim at while their gun is quiet, but she knows what enfilade does to a body inside 3 meters. Intra-building crossings are killing grounds designed by geometry. She holds them back with her shoulders, makes herself the dam. Her plan wants aggression because everything else is eaten by the hour. If Germans reinforce the top floor, the factory fight complicates. She rewrites timing in the air and presses it into her palm with a nail. A German voice murmurs, too soft to translate, too sharp to be anything but an order. Boots scuff. Someone over there has learned the same math. Silence plus a dead span equals opportunity. The corridor yawn is 3 meters of air that belongs to whoever owns noise. Right now, the noise is a bad story. Ivana lifts her hand chest high and flashes 2 fingers like a knife. 2 seconds, then you either sing or we go to knives, and the risk hangs over both plans. In those 2 seconds, Yuri makes a choice that feels like betrayal and is devotion. He hooks a raw forefinger under the bent link and makes himself a pry bar. Skin peels like glue from the frosted edge. Teeth ache at the sound, and the link comes up with tiny reluctance more dangerous than defiance. He sees the starter tab, sees the way it isn't seated, and his body wants to slam it home to feel a problem turn solved. He doesn't crank. He breathes shallow, tilts just enough, flattens the belt's curve against his palm, and counts like prayer. The building complains low when a wind gust sneaks through rooms without windows and presses snow through gaps like flour through a sieve. Dust spirals in the corridor and makes a small halo to the left of the opposite doorway. A boot toe invades that halo, an inch of leather poised in a stillness that reads as intent. They are testing the landing the way a blind swimmer feels for the pool's lip, and Adler uses Soviet silence like a mirror, waiting to see if it fogs. Mikhail wants to flick the safety off and slam the bolt through resistance until it obeys, or breaks, because some machines respect only violence. Instead, he shoots Ivana a look that says, "We have a heartbeat left, maybe 2. His finger floats above the trigger as if it's hot, which it will be again in a breath. He feels the weight of the stairwell on his fingertip and the way the cold turns that pressure into numb nothing that makes mistakes easier and corrections slower. He has done speed reloads with gloves so thick he couldn't feel the tape at the start of the belt, and he made them look like fluency. The flaw in that fluency is here, a misread in a numb minute. Some of this is his. He let speed and the residue of 100 drills stand in for attention when he swapped boxes 2 floors down. The dent didn't help, the paste in the receiver didn't either, but his confidence gave both an open door he now has to close quietly. The German MG across the yard has not joined yet. That could mean repositioning, sleep, or a signal waiting. It will wake to any sustained exchange like an animal that only hunts when there is movement. Ivana glances to the window slit and sees only blue morning and bite-mark brick, but the potential of a lane sweeping the window line hangs like a blade. If that MG speaks, they'll have to keep heads below sill level and guess at the corridor by sound, a way to die in a war of rooms. The radio on her hip gives a sympathetic click, a battery-dying note that matches the dead click Mikhail's bolt made a moment ago. She lifts it and watches the needle slump. The cold ate the last charge like a parasite. Orders are now fingers and eyebrows, and she has drilled it because radios die as easily as men in this weather. She lowers the set and hums a plan into her bones. If we can't talk, we will move like a single body, and we will accept the cost when it comes. Yuri's blood dots the belt and freezes into rust-colored punctuation. The absurdity of contamination, that a single drop of human can change how a machine moves, doesn't register as absurd. He uses the blood as grip. He uses pain as information. Loss of feeling is the enemy now. He tells himself the gun needs warmth more than speed. He tells himself he will drive the bolt with the heel of his hand, then they will think about the next belt, and he will find and cut the suspect link before it rises to the tray. The receiver is a tongue of dark metal thrust into the stairwell's cold breath, grown a skin of frost over rough paint. Frost smokes off each time Mikhail squeezes, and each time he doesn't. He ghosts the charging handle again, not enough to sing the stairwell another telltale song, enough to feel the cartridge climb or fail. It lifts, it snags on the burr like a man's shoulder on a torn shirt, a thing you ignore until it rips further, and the choice is now or later with equal ugliness. Across, the ember rises again and then stays dead, discipline asserting itself. Adler won't walk a man out without cover. He'll send a feeler, then another, then the MG will rake, then they'll commit a step at a time. He is a man who believes in rhythms, in predictable bursts he can dance around. The quiet here is a wrong note. He leans his ear into wrongness and squints through a sliver. He hears patience and misreads it as exhaustion. Ivana raises her hand, flat palm, hold, and carves a razor line in the air. No grenades. A grenade into that doorway would solve one problem and grow two. Shrapnel doesn't know rooms from men, and the stairwell is a bowl. She reads 20 other rooms where grenade first ended mornings early. She wants monologue from the gun instead. She wants Mikhail's mechanical voice back, the one that speaks in syllables of brass and makes Germans slow down without thinking. Every time the gun doesn't speak, the building does. Drips become ticks. Ticks become measures. A thread of powdered snow slides down the wall and draws a white line on black grime. Yuri watches it with the irrational certainty that if it touches floor before he clears the jam, someone will die. He bends harder against the belt. He feels it want to go home now, the way a stubborn wire suddenly chooses straight. He senses the jam's core and the pressure it wants. Not too much, not too little, a Goldilocks he hates having to court. Mikhail breathes through his nose to keep his mouth from sounding like a bellows. He knows a long burst now is a gamble. Cold metal with thick oil and ice crystals will turn long heat into expansion that warps tolerances and guarantees a future stoppage. Short bursts reduce that, but short bursts won't do for the crossing. He lives between doctrine and need, and right now that gap is the width of the corridor he's supposed to cover. Behind him, a body shifts weight, someone eager to move, someone who wants off the razor and into act. Ivana feels that itch and cuts it off with a look colder than the hallway. She relays a tiny nod to Mikhail that contains an entire paragraph. Clear it or tell me it's dead, and we switch to Plan Ugly. Her runner for that ugliness is in mind, a man who can sprint like he doesn't know what bullets are, and she hates herself for thinking it because it means she's ready to spend him. A tiny sound from the opposite doorway, leather turning into a foot, adjusting. The boot that had been testing the landing shifts and loads tile, testing the world. Snow dust flares from a hole in the wall as the boot disturbs a cold air continuum. Yuri sees the swirl and realizes they're not dealing with a rumor, but a footfall, and then a knee, and then a head. The urge to bark warning is physical. He swallows it and glues his eyes on the belt and the burr that is his whole day. The starter tab is finally right. He feels it nest under the pawl with obscene neatness. It should have been there from the first breath of this push. His raw fingers hover, knowing they're the difference between feed and stall. He draws his hand back a fraction, and the belt tries to follow, like a dog not taught to heel. He pins it and looks to Mikhail with a face that is a question. Can we sell this? Mikhail reads it. He thumbs the handle forward with measured authority, refusing to let panic be grease. The bolt closes, not with a smug slam, but with cautious, murderous poise. He tests with a whisper. The gun coughs one like it's clearing its throat for a speech. The echo informs both sides that impermanence is still in charge. He steadies. The neck squeeze is supposed to be the sermon, and he feels Ivana's breath on the back of his helmet like a hand poised to cut him loose if words fail. But across the corridor, a shoulder edges past the jam, helmet rim tasting the air, testing the quiet to see if it bites, and ready to slam the door on fingers if it does. The stairwell holds its breath, the gun a dead weight, the corridor yawning white with blown powder snow that wheels in the draft. The shadow steadies, a cigarette ember hanging for a second in the other doorway, an orange bead bobbing with the shallow breath of a man listening. Mikhail keeps his cheek on the stock like a parishioner at an icon, eyes forward as if he could will the receiver to cycle. Ivana's palm hovers near his shoulder, then two fingers jab toward the landing and back toward the inner wall. They don't speak. A whisper would become a tin can shout, and the enemy would hear the confession. What hangs is the arithmetic of 3 meters under enfilade. Without the gun, it is a ledger full of red. Yuri's breath feathers the steel as he leans in, mitt already discarded, the air so cold it bites the wet of his lips. He cracks the cover a hair, no more, and brings up the tray. The neat depot geometry is gone, the starter tab sits proud, the belt canted, a brass link jammed sideways like a doorstop in a hinge. He slides a fingernail under it and feels a raised lip that wasn't there yesterday, a burr shaving itself into his skin. He looks up, pupils wet with cold tears. Mikhail shapes 2 seconds without sound, but the second hand here is the probe's footfall on cracked tile. Across the yard, the MG opens, a flat, reaping sound that whips sleet of glass along the window line and forces them down. Plaster dust sprays off the sill, the world narrows to ankles and the black rectangle of the corridor mouth. The yard gun's sweeping cone draws a chalk line they cannot cross. It also blinds them to feelers moving under that audio umbrella. The German gunner is a metronome. He lashes the same angles every 2 heartbeats, and only in the in-betweens can eyes lift and taste the corridor for movement. Silence from their gun becomes a rhythm the enemy can write plans on. Ivana shows the plan with hands alone. Wrist turns, palm up, the retreat. 2 fingers rake back toward stairs. She touches the back of Mikhail's head, then slices the air where the muzzle will speak. The bait. Her eyes warn the cost. Give ground in shards of choreography. Trust the Germans, keyed to Soviet habits, to follow into the sight line where the barrel can crown them. The throat mic gives a death rattle squawk. She kills it. What she can count on are pre-briefed signals and the way men move when a corridor empties. Yuri pinches the bent link. Cold is not an element anymore. It is teeth in steel. He pulls and his skin sticks to feed lips like a tongue to a pump handle. He holds, then peels back. A crescent of skin comes away with a sound like varnish cracking. Blood pools ruby, then goes black and wax hard. He doesn't wince. He worries the link out with a torn pad, and it pops free with a click too loud. Stairwell acoustics, bouncing it like a dropped coin. The shadow in the doorway across twitches, a head more than a shoulder now, listening, smelling a weakness they have to deny. The dented box shows its sin now, side buckled from that fall, they didn't curse enough. The belt doesn't leave in a straight berth, it yawns to the receiver wall, an angle invisible when warm. Now every tolerance is pinched. The canvas creaks as Yuri shifts it, guiding with his left as doctrine drilled, thumb on the rimmed 7.62x54 to keep yaw straight. The box is an enemy, pressing the belt into a curve that guarantees a nose-up presentation. He wraps the corner with his palm and feels resistance, like pushing a warped door in ice. His wrist bones ring. Mikhail racks the handle once, twice, short, controlled to feel the pawls. The gun coughs a dry, unconvincing clack, a mechanical throat clear, the shape of a round barely touched and backed against friction. Inside, fouling cured into grit, has mixed with sugar of ice to make abrasive sludge. They went a hair long in the first burst, 5, maybe 6, to keep the far doorway honest, heat expanded, then locked back down, parts gripping parts like frozen hands. He resists the itch to slam. Short is kinder. Patience now may buy a strip of speech later. Patience is a hard sell to a corridor. Ivana points, flat palm, now. Two men, Stepan and little Lev, shuffle backward toward the stair turn, making the careful noise a fake retreat needs. Scuffed tile, gear whisper. She pours her own body into the window angle, letting the yard MG hammer bricks inches away. She wants the enemy to count feet and overcommit. She leans into a habit in German reports, probes of 2, feelers who need to touch a new floor. They won't lob a grenade blind. Grenades are currency you spend only when the other side stands still. Yuri's hands move in a piano roll blur, but each press is ice-stitched pain. He reseats the tab with a thumbnail, seats it dead in the notch, then presses down on the belt to feel the pawl rise. He feeds with the left, keeping the run flat across broken tile. Under cloth tape 3 cartridges down, a ridge, a story told by the belt itself. An old kink punched out and disguised. He marks it in his head like a mine in a footpath, even as he pushes the first inch forward, and he hates the moment he'll meet it. Mikhail keeps his cheek down, trigger finger off for now. He looks not at the door, but at the tray, the way a driver stares at gauges on black ice. The first round noses up, pauses, and his thumb drops to smack its base, a trick from an old gun captain who turned blanket to scarf 2 summers ago. The rim may catch, it may ride. He breathes into his scarf. Vapor drifts across the receiver, tiny frost fibers smoking like a spirit undecided. Across, a German spits and crushes an ember, punctuation that says, "Now goes the probe." The yard MG cuts off abruptly, as if someone plucked a cable. Silence is heavier. Glass dust keeps falling. Sound has weight. In that gap, small noises double. Safety clicks, strap rub, leather cinch. The stairwell swallows and amplifies. The Soviets are suddenly aware how every move is an announcement. Ivana nods. The feint just became an invitation written in cut-out letters. The Germans hear the lack of hearing and decide it means corridor ownership without paying for it. A boot appears first. Snow powder puffs where weather laid a white film on tile. Leather dark with melt, toe scuffed raw, sole leaving a sharp print. It tests the landing with hunter's caution, turning to feel grit, stepping twice. Behind, a second boot ghosts the edge. Lighter, reluctant. The first belongs to shoulders, the second to someone taught to be quick. Adler is behind, a whispering shadow with a hand on his man's shoulder plate, measuring like a carpenter his next cut. The boot advances again, calf wrapped in putty, a breath fog pooling into their space that feels like trespass. Yuri's finger slips. It leaves a dark comma on the belt as blood squeegees onto canvas. The drop wets into the weave and crusts red-black, slick where you need grip. He wipes it with his pant leg without thought, grinding it into lint and ice. He parses a second problem. Their last clean run. What lies in reserve? A suspect link mid-belt they cannot cut without losing half the feed. He meets Mikhail's eyes and taps twice on his forearm. Suspect ahead. Count bursts. Let seconds do work. Mikhail gives a quarter nod and eases the bolt back a finger's width, feeling Powell teeth tick. The first round seats with a small, trapped click. Stairwells make clicks big. The enemy will read the andante of his feed like a book of intentions. He won't test fire. The first fire must be a sentence, not a stutter. He sets bipod feet into cracks between tiles, looking for memory and stone to keep the barrel from walking. He imagines the arc, the place the probe must cross to reach the interior wall, the band of air he must shear on rumor of a helmet. Ivana's hand floats into his edge of vision, silhouette in powder light. She draws a line with her index from corridor edge to stair center, then chops, kill line. She pinches fingers and pulls them back. Draw. Her other hand flexes. How long? Mikhail lifts his spare hand, middle finger extended, sunk knuckle to palm, a small duress sign, cleared by hand, not by faith. He rolls his index down. Next belt suspect. Palm flat. Control bursts. She nods micro, lips shaping a soundless curse at a timetable that asks too much of cold metal. The Yard MG revives farther down, skewed in its lane, corrective from someone who thinks he senses movement. It rakes windows, its path shallower now, a sweep that leaves a gap above the landing by accidental mercy. Through that notch of sound, the German probe pushes a shoulder, then a head, pot helmet haloed in dust, chin strapped tight, jaw skin raw with cold. His breath fogs and is sucked away by the draft. His eyes cut left, then right, the habitual door-clearing scan competent in summer and a death note now if he believes winter makes enemies slow. Yuri presses the dented box wall outward with his palm until fatigue metal gives a half degree. He knows he's gambling, fatigue cracks in cold, but he needs the belt exit straight for 3 good seconds. The canvas sighs into a less cruel angle, the belt lays flatter, the snake a squirm. He slides his left under the run and lifts so gravity serves rather than drags rounds into a yaw. He can feel each link through starchy canvas as articulate joints and counts small irregularities until his finger rests near the cloth-taped kink. They have no radio now. The battery is a bluestone in a pocket. Orders become shapes the enemy might use, so Ivana leans into specificity. 2 fingers, palm flat, corkscrew twist, pivot on my mark. One missed gesture could send Stepan into air at the wrong second. The stair is a theater crowded with actors on different scripts. She trusts drilled subplots. The other calculation is time. German reinforcements, if Adler radios, are a sprint away across the yard. The MG's shifting cone tells her they're waiting for confirmation. Any longer, and grenades settle the matter. Mikhail's world pares down to the trigger's face and the notch splitting dark. He inches the gun left until the doorway becomes a box, and the space just inside a place to cut. He thinks about how the first burst cooked metal then froze. He thinks 2 to 4 rounds, no more. He feels the old jam like a bruise under his finger. That memory becomes restraint. His breath is a metronome. The German's shoulder moves into the picture and lingers as a heartbeat always does, too long. The cigarette squashes under a heel, sparks like a constellation snuffed, the last light the probe offers. Adler whispers, a brush of paper, and the first man shifts forward, heel lifting, toe light, a runner's grammar. The second angles his weapon across his partner's hip, choreography of 2 drilled in quiet fields. They wait for one more sign, an empty echo, a ghost step around the stair turn, and Ivana, with a small scrape, writes it for them and knows the price. Yuri touches suspect tape, counting backward, mapping how many good rounds remain until trouble. 12. He leans in and murmurs nothing, lips shaping numbers he won't voice. His last intact belt is not intact, a long sustained will eat it. He considers in a flash cutting now, shortening, throwing away bad section for certainty. The knife is in his pocket. The problem is seconds and the fact that cutting is a declaration. Their lives depend on pretending nothing is wrong. Mikhail feels the belt's first submission, the machine's readiness no longer hypothetical. He presses the trigger, easing past slack until the sear edges. He holds. He waits for Adler's men to cross the chalk where they can't bail as easily as they came. Ivana's 2 fingers rise, melt down. Flat palm says, hold. The tension is a blade between teeth. One twitch cuts inside. The German boot commits. It steps onto their landing with confidence bred from misread silence, toe roller tracing a half circle toward the inner wall. In the inspiration between breaths, the gun is a statue, the corridor a white throat awaiting sound. Yuri's hand stiffens under the belt. His torn finger touches the tape, and the ridge it hides as if touching his own scar. He steals a glance at Mikhail. Mikhail doesn't see. He's watching the shadow pass the point where even a grenade thrown from there would punish its thrower. The yard MG shifts again. A lull opens. Into that lull, Mikhail lets the trigger break. The gun does not roar, yet. The bolt flies, cuts a groove in the cold, and the first round meets the chamber lip, and in the same instant he feels the smallest hesitation. The machine's voice begins to return, and the building prepares to reply. But the next link, halfway under cloth, tightens like a muscle under a bruise, and through leather he feels it catch, a tremor at the worst edge. The second boot slips, finding the landing, and the follow-through in his finger meets drag that isn't human. The silence is its own sound. The tightening of the trigger bow, a Paul's slide without companion thrum. Frost smoke that should puff off the receiver hangs and thins. He lets pressure go, mouths a curse that fogs his teeth, and stills the gun mid-cut. In the gap, Ivana's retreat gesture hangs, flat palm slicing back, 2 fingers pointing in, while the landing answers with cloth on concrete. Forward movement, not retreat, from the other side, and the yard MG's next sweep is a countdown he cannot mute. Yuri is already on the belt, left hand guiding canvas like a thing he can persuade to dance straight, thumb forcing the link flat as if coaxing a stubborn child. His fingertips are raw from the first peel. The skin that sticks again is fresher, pain snaking up his wrist. The belt bucks against his palm, the kink not in the tray yet, but coming, like a knot under a rug you dread stepping on. He thinks of the dent in the box they argued about 2 floors down, how he didn't insist, and the thought curdles. He clamps harder. If he lets go, it yaws. Ivana inches a boot back over broken tile, sole rolling over grit, making the retreat real in silhouette. She keeps eyes on Mikhail's jaw where frost hoars the stubble, looking for the micro-nod that says the gun will speak. The radio murmurs once, then goes flat. She kills it with a thumb and speaks with her body. Chin dip, mouth sharp, wait. Her plan, timed to a second, stretches into brittle silence. If it shatters wrong, there's no tape to mend it. Across the corridor, the ember bobs, dims, is smeared out. A boot edge tests the first step like a thief touching ice. Snow dust spirals through the hole, catches the ember's last heat. A wink, then goes cold. A shoulder rolls against a jam. A second smear, the angle of a helmet, the carabiner's nose, stacked behind the first. Adler's rhythm changes. The silence isn't retreat anymore. It's bait he thinks he's ignoring as he steals a hand of it for himself. The yard MG lashes a new rake through windows, a stitched hiss tearing like canvas ripped with a dull knife. It saws the room into stripes. Stay low, stay lower, stay stone. Chalk flurries into the air. A radiator rings from a stray strike, metal singing a tight, miserable pitch. Mikhail can't raise for the landing. His picture is by feel. He counts like bursts. 1 Mississippi, 2, until the MG 34 or 42 pauses. No pause yet. The probe will hit the landing before the far gun gasps. Time is a fuse burning under his ribs. Yuri's blood freezes as it beads, varnishing feed lips into red lacquer. Canvas hisses on tile as it snakes, the kink telegraphed through weave like a scar under tape that will not smooth. He marked it with grease pencil 3 days ago, told himself they'd cut when breathing room came. It never did. Now it's at their door on the breath of 2 men testing a stair, and he has to decide whether he will spend rounds like coins or seconds like limbs. Mikhail unhooks his trigger finger, slides forward, and finds the cover latch by cold geometry he could draw blind. He cracks it a hair, open fully, and the hinge will sing the stairs an aria. He wedges a nail between tray and cover, steel hissing against nail bed. He could shoot like this if the belt stays straight for 2. He tells himself a lie. 2 rounds is enough. 2 is everything. 2 will buy space to fix for real. He needs his own lie to feel solid enough to place bullets on it. Ivana reads the slope of his shoulders that says he's lying and doesn't call him with a hiss that would feather silence apart. She pushes a loose plaster chunk with her boot so it skitters back, a retreat sound loud and farther. She wants the probe to believe 2 things at once, retreat and panic. She raises 2 fingers low, pointed at the corner, 2 in the arc. Her thumb touches her throat. If the gun stumbles, she will cut at legs, not chests. 1 second is forever if you win it. Adler stays back, sideways in a doorway, shoulder-height shadow line as barricade. 2 fingers, knuckle nod. The point man, narrow-shouldered with frost-speckled lashes, plants a leading leg and flattens his foot. The second keeps muzzle, down left, covering the elbow spot that showed half a breath ago. Adler likes this moment. Soviet guns bark, then mute, he tells himself. Cold takes knuckles and composure. He might not think it if he could hear the starving clicks of feed poles 70 paces away. The yard stitch shifts right to left, comb drawn through missing teeth, and hits a radiator with a clash that makes everyone suck their teeth. The ring hides tiny clacks as Mikhail works Paul with thumbskin and prayer. Oil is grit toothpaste, each motion is arthritis through narrow bones. He cannot waste the ring. He moves inside it while it vibrates. His hand is steady because he has given panic somewhere else to live. Yuri dips low, his helmet rim taps tiles, hollow talk like a small gavel, and he freezes and breathes out slow. Under the gun, between forearm and stock, he sees the belt spine, wrong near the marker, the weave stiff with melt refreezes and grime. He pries with a thumbnail, shoring with his palm to avoid torquing a precious millimeter. His thumb splits, blood wells, goes glass hard. He reminds himself that straight is victory, not speed, and sets the run true, a finger width at a time. In Mikhail's mouth, the taste of carbon sits like a penny. He takes his glove off, pockets it, not dropping it where a boot might smear it into loss. His bare pads have mapped paw teeth since 19 in a bunker never this cold. Memory of warm metal is an enemy. He moves slow, avoids leaving skin film to gum a tooth. Vapor laces the receiver. He settles the first round nose. He can't feel brass. He trusts angle and alignment the way a blind man trusts a step. Ivana checks her pistol magazine with one ungloved finger, tucks the hand back into sleeve, quelling the urge to blind fire. A single blind shot would ring a bell and be answered. She holds, deepens the retreat, leans shoulder to wall, and lets mortar bar through her coat so pain keeps her from stepping out too soon. Her tidy minutes have burned away. She names a new one. If the gun lives, all our failures can still hurt the enemy, and that is enough. The Germans' approach is economy. The lead boot slides to catch on a blown-out edge, ankle working in silence. The second's barrel cants a fraction, sight picture adjusted to a stare shifted by bombardment. Mouths closed, noses plume-thin and disciplined. The MG sings. Adler hears a rhythm he likes. He thinks the stare is measured by breaths only his men own. He misreads the quality of this quiet. It feels loaded, not empty, but his own breath is steady, so he thinks theirs must be breaking. Yuri makes a decision without eyes from Ivana. He slides his knife and tucks the flat under the taped suspect run he wrapped on another day. Cutting tape risks exposing the bent link to snag. Leaving it guarantees the kink. He whispers, winterfly quiet. Shorter. He'll cut if it yaws, throw away 20 to save 5 seconds that would cost them their skin. Mikhail nods once, throat flexing. Mikhail reseats the cover with the belt, coaxed into straight that he knows is a lie over a lie. He draws the bolt slowly, feeling travel mill by mill, stopping when carrier kisses round. There's drag, like sand, singing through bone into his palm. He wills it forward with pressure both delicate and savage, threading a needle while holding a wounded man down. Overdrive shaves brass, underdrive noses up. Below, steps shift. He drives and accepts what comes. A cough of fire? Not yet. The primer kisses and fails, frost-sick powder behind it. He feels click, but not recoil. He knows as he draws the bolt again that this round is now a troublemaker. 2 taps on the handle, hard enough to jar, not to break brittle things. He keys the trigger, a hair. A second failure would tell the other staircase everything. His lip tingles where a bead is frozen and split. He leaves it. He needs noise to be a wall and not a window. Ivana hears the primer's sulky pop echo out of the receiver, a fly note under radiator song. It punches her stomach. The German point man's foot reaches her planned kill lane, half into the arc. 1 step more would be full commit. Her hand lifts without thought, stop to her men's pistol impulse, to grenade temptation. Grenades end everything, including them. She's at the edge of her plan and feels the edge like glass with a drop beneath. The far MG pauses, belt swap or barrel change, and the air changes. Small sounds return. Ice taps, sleeve cloth slides, wet grit under a heel. Someone below coughs and swallows it. The landing grows a shape you can hear. The Germans feel it too. The second leans in, more weight committed. The gap is a door swinging for everyone. Yuri uses that gap. He pulls the knife into canvas and slices. The belt parts with a muffled snap, threads whisking like rope ends freed. 20 rounds go slack to the floor. He guides them with his palm so they don't clap. He's thrown away future he can't carry. The belt left is clean of the first kink. The second is 7 links away. His count becomes heartbeats. He humps the box with his knee to square its mouth without scraping. He hates its dent like a personal slight and uses it anyway. Mikhail feels the round seat true this time. He ghosts finger to trigger, rolling weight so the sear breaks like ice that decides, not glass that shatters. He whispers the cadence, 2 to 4, and promises not to outrun cold with heat. He imagines the bullet path at knee height, the scythe that stops a stride. Powder fouling and ice crystals grind into lube if he keeps bursts tight and cares about breathing metal, and he lets care become a weapon. The gun snaps back with a bark like an insult in someone's ear. The flash strobes the stairwell. German soul raised, eye whites pinching, plaster dust mid-bloom. Ivana's lips peeled in a snarl like a smile. 2 rounds stamp frame and landing edge. 2 men jerk as if roped. One drops a knee hard, his rifle skitters and sparks. The other clamps shoulder to wall and hurls a half-aimed shot that rips brick by Mikhail's cheek and salts him with grit, a sting that proves the corridor is not empty. He feels smooth feed for 2, then weight on the arm changes, the out-of-round tug that signals the next suspect section. The first victory becomes punishment. He wants a 4-round finish. That habit eats guns. He holds. He lets Yuri pull the belt straighter with a left-hand flourish that costs skin. He takes a half-beat that could be death and turns it into survival, trusting the way metal follows pressure when you don't hurry it into rupture. On the far side, Adler hears the 2-round discipline and makes an error flush with confidence. He miscounts belt length left to a team that went quiet for reasons he decided. He circles a hand to send his second pair to sweep behind the first. 2 is elegant, a feeler that becomes a blade. He is proud of 2. He slides to catch a line that crosses any Soviet who runs across the 3-meter. He likes shots at backs. He likes timing. He forgets bait can taste like habit. Yuri rocks belt alignment by tightening elbow to rib and rolling wrist out. Tiny geometry that would be trivial in summer, and noble now. The box yawns left. He gives right-hand love. He feels the bend like a tooth under tongue. He knows the exact bad link. He wants to bite it out and spit it down the stair. He can't. He must feed it through and hope tray teeth gnaw enough to pass. Hope is thin, and nobody else is holding any. Mikhail places his next 2 like stitches. He walks them into shin height, where the kneeling man's second knee wants to be. Stair sound climbs, brass bouncing, bolts sliding, human pitches of panic and command too low to be words. He cuts again at 2, jaw clenched until the joint ticks. The arm drags. The suspect section kisses the lip. He imagines, with tender premonition, a bird link deflecting a rimmed cartridge up. He presses anyway and shapes faith into 2 more and pays for it. Nose up, a half-feed binds. The stair tells on him with a clack that climbs the walls to sit in German ears. Even through pain, the point man hears it and throws himself over the next step to close distance before the MG breathes again. Ivana slices her hand, signal to 2 men crouched opposite. Throw noise at chest height. They crack the air with rifle shots that fill the hole the gun left, voices of metal speaking in lieu of the drum. A grenade clinks deeper down the German hall, metallic threat brought up by someone who thinks he will solve this quietly. Adler hisses, "No," and slaps the wrist, sending it back into a pocket. Grenades in buildings make all sides lose. He gestures forward instead. He believes he can finish what his pair started with muzzle and nerve. His chest calculates and forgets other people's math when his numbers feel elegant. Yuri strips the stuck round back with a pinky hook and split thumb edge. He pops the cover a notch. Hinge whispers. He sees the bent link slide, sees where the burr will send the next round if he lets it. He takes belt and twists naked metal with his nail, coaxing bullet nose down to feed line without scratching more bright that will catch. He can taste copper. He doesn't know which cut it came from, and he presses because he can't afford to think about his hands. Mikhail wants to breathe, but knows breath fogs receiver, and fog becomes grit. He exhales through his nose. Vapor slides sideways like it knows better. Cold in steel climbs into bone. He remembers Volga banks in October when cold felt clean. This cold is a blunt tool. It bludgeons anything not iron and anger. His finger grazes trigger. He is ready to like the gun again if it earns it, and promises to not love it too loud. Ivana hears full weight on German feet now. the rhythm of commitment rather than testing taps, and here's bravado of men who think they have the timing. She lifts pistol a thumb's breadth, sight clearing cover, line drawn but not crossed. Tendons on the top of her hand move like cables under old rubber. If the gun fails, she will aim at legs and feet to buy a second. She hates that she hopes and lets the hate keep the hope honest. Yuri flicks eyes to belt run left, links, dents, canvas breath in cold. If they ride past suspect without tearing, 8, maybe 10 rounds remain. 10 is a month compared to 0. He takes an extra microsecond to press the belt straight off the dented box, like straightening a tie in a room where someone is shooting. It feels ridiculous and necessary. He thinks of the factory where the belt was woven and hopes its pattern forgives winter. The gun breaks silence, crack crack like knuckles. The lead German, half up, takes a round through his instep. Forward becomes collapse. He falls backward on instinct, hands grab air, jaw bites white breath. The second takes tile splinters in the cheek. He blinks a second of blindness that could be luck if anyone has any left. Adler curses, rises to yank them clear, and in doing so makes himself tall in geometry, built for people who are low and paid for it by those who don't forgive tall silhouettes. Mikhail tracks the arc with patience that feels unnatural, placing bursts like sutures. The belt's suspect section announces itself with a tug less tug than tone, wrist bone resonance. He could push and risk a spray of bright failure that declares him done. He could stop and clear. He could shout. He picks the hardest small thing, takes pressure off for a breath, and lets Yuri fix, while his own eyes keep the landing in a cage, and in that denial of impulse he keeps a lane 2 heartbeats wide. Snow dust drifts through the wall hole in a tiny spiral like a dancer caught in strobe. Time becomes visible. The spiral lifts and falls, telling a change in air as bodies move near the opening. Ivana watches it because she can't show her face. It gives the shape of what happens next, before sound. She lifts her chin and mouths a word without sound. Now. A promise to Mikhail, to Yuri, to herself, to the 2 shadows committing to their mistake. The stairwell holds 3 beats: metal, human, weather. They sync for a second that lets them right over Adler's rhythm. Mikhail finds the trigger again. The belt smooths for one little length. He thinks of short, controlled bursts, of parts warming and expanding unevenly. Heat will help, then hurt. He lives inside the help and refuses to pay interest yet, knowing the bill always comes. A bullet smacks close. Powdered brick salts his eye. He flinches without moving the gun. The shot came not from the probe but from deeper in the doorway. Opportunistic, a silhouette gamble. Adler's second pair are shadows now, responses not plans, and they are at a cruel distance. Ivana doesn't shout. She knocks the back of Mikhail's helmet with her knuckles, a house signal from 3 days ago. Shoot now, even if not ready. It hurts. It helps. He presses because he trusts the pain to mean go. The gun barks. The belt feeds. For 3 rounds, reality honors intention. Then the second bent link they both knew enters with the inevitability of a bad hour on time. Trouble isn't near. It is in. Weight changes like a heart that chooses to skip a beat. Yuri's breath catches and freezes as he feels it too, both of them staring at the last good run as if stare could soften metal into obedience, while Adler's second man shows just enough to deserve a reply. A second shadow joins the first, committed now, just as the suspect section noses into the feed and tries to make everything old again. Yuri feels the belt stiffen. Cloth drags as if it holds breath. Under torn tape, the kink rides like a healed bone ready to snap. He angles his wrist to square links, knuckles whitening, left thumb guiding as trained, but the dented box refuses to forget and keeps spitting slant. He looks to Mikhail. The receiver lid is floated just enough to cheat a jam, ready to slap down and fire blind. Their eyes ask the same thing: cut now or gamble an inch that could be a mile. Ivana's hand rises in silhouette, 2 fingers, then flat palm, slow and quiet as a lullaby, and she edges her rifle toward the corner, gaffing a loose brick with her boot to make it clatter down and sell retreat. The brick skips, strikes iron, echoing like a door slam. Across, the ember that hovered earlier flares and dies like a lid closing. She has measured this crossing, and this 3 meters is everything now that their radio is a cold stone and conversations happen with skin. The receiver breathes heat into cold like an animal, frost steaming off in skeins, and Mikhail's bare skin lights with pain where it touches feed lips he dared only to brush. His thumbnail splits, blood blooming to a bead that freezes dark. Oil in the tray shines a black winter gloss, catching his breath as fog. He toggles the handle back a thumbnail's width and hears ice grit the rails. It sounds like a bell to foreign ears, and he holds it in his throat. Across, the probe learns the floor by smell, boots testing plaster, then weight slips forward, and a snow dust spiral disturbs at the wall hole, a tiny twister lit from outside. Adler's first feeler drops a heel and squats, presenting a helmet rim to the stairwell like a coin on a table. The second stays high, shoulders flat to the jam, fingers splayed, last stub crushed under heel to cloak breath. He waits for a cough that tells him what the machine is. Yuri halves the belt with eyes, counts 6 links to the ugly bend, and knows the choice: tear it clean now and waste rounds beyond, accept a shortened feed, or ride the bad stretch and trust Pauls to forgive a burr at measured pace. He's seen jamming beget jamming. A single mispresented rim climbs the next, and the next into steel. A staircase is no place to unpick a pileup with a grenade spinning toward your feet. He mouths to Mikhail, cut it, hates that pain, makes words feel real. Mikhail shakes his head, risk written on frost on his lip. Cut kills the first half-second and empties the river. Slower, he mouths. He flicks eyes to Ivana. She reads and lengthens the feint, trading time for tension and risking Germans deciding emptiness is real. A breath, then another, each a debt, and he sets finger on trigger guard, not trigger, leaving himself a glove's thickness between pause and action. Adler leans for the banister post that looked like a man in muzzle flash. It's only wood and cable. He likes predictable Soviet pendulums, fast bursts, clumsy reloads, mittens on metal. He drops 2 fingers at knee height to his second and points his MP-40 low, ready to hose once threshold is touched and the stairwell becomes a throat to fill with bullets. He misses that throats can bite down. Outside, the yard MG rakes again, tracer drawing red wires in blue pre-dawn, turning glass to salt that hisses and forcing Ivana flush to the wall. The gun lays where it thinks heads poke. Fine snow puffs when rounds snap steel or stone, a line that makes the mouth a bright slice that kills curiosity. She keeps cheek on grit and counts sweeps, tense for the fractional pause that will be the only safe sound. Her patience is a weapon bigger than the pistol in her hand. Yuri sets his knife under the suspect links, ready to amputate mid-run. He hates cold steel you taste through fingers, but it gives precision in a world of mittens. He angles the starter tab forgivingly, correcting the box's twist with thumb at the exact place it wants wrong, left forearm a brace against fate. The blade stays still. He will spend metal only if his hand fails. Mikhail exhales, lifts the lid just enough to slide the rim under the extractor claw, trusting motion memory learned warm that never prepared him for ice like sand. He thinks of the stairwell as a gossip who will tell the whole landing when the hammer falls on empty. He treats the machine like a wick, a slow light that will burn true if not drowned in heat, and he wants the first syllables to be enough to keep men in their holes. Ivana whispers a name the Germans can hear as identity, and lets it sound like a complaint thrown down the hall to telegraph retreat. She scrapes a boot louder and farther, and someone below obliges with a curse. Theater is good. Even the enemy believes performance. When they want the ending, it promises. Adler's lead man peels into the landing, rolling low to test the Soviet left, shoulder bumping the frame. He plants his MP-40 to sweep toe to thigh. The second slides into the jam line, Mauser tucked, sights already on the corner where a head will show half committed. Adler scrapes shoulder to plaster, chalk dust on coat. They depend on suppressed being bold, popping back into corridor to take the bait. Today the bait is something else. The belt, coaxed by Yuri's fingers, comes square to feed as if cloth remembers straight. The bad section yawns with a bright burr shining stupidly. Mikhail sees it, and something in his jaw closes. He knows the rim will meet it, like a snowplow meets a curb. Up, then stuck. One option, not retreat, change rate. He sets cheek to sight line and promises 2 or 3 only. No heat surge, no greedy strings that make parts grow and seize like wintered hands. A pause opens in the yard MG's song, the breach between belts or a barrel swap, and Ivana opens her palm, a go that feels like exhale after weeks. Mikhail slaps the receiver down, shoulders the stock as if steadying a man. Yuri feeds inches like a priest passing beads, and the first squeeze sends 2 rounds, just 2, stamping the corridor with flat thunder that jumps dust and makes the German flinch into lower ground rather than spray blind. The strobe makes ruin a gallery of frozen faces and stars. The bent link nears. Yuri sets blade to canvas, ready to make new desperation, but Pauls take the rim at a shallow angle that kisses the burr and slides, a squeal like fingernail on glass. Mikhail feels hesitation through the frame, a heart stutter, resists slapping the charger and folding problem into itself. Another tight 2, and restraint reads like weakness to men hungry for lessons. The probe commits and gets paid for it. The lead German sprays, MP-40 stitching air an inch above landing, round snapping plaster where Ivana's head was. Adler's second reaches to toss a potato masher, thin and dark, leaning out past the jam so his elbow sees daylight. Mikhail gives a 3-round tongue to that elbow and shoulder. The throw turns to a drop. The grenade thumps in the shallow doorway. Instinct yanks it back. The movement twists the man and costs him a beat. Everyone else uses. The yard MG picks up again, lane off by a fraction, raking upper frames farther down. Ivana uses misalignment to pop back and place 2 where the probe must be, because steps put men in places patterns know. A shoulder knocks into shadow with the slap of hurt. She slides to the opposite jam so if a grenade comes, they're not in love with the same wall, cutting risk with posture. The bad section shows, the curve like a scar, and Yuri decides. He angles the belt down on entry, overcompensating the yaw, keeps cloth taut so link holes meet pawl noses. Fingertips, raw and raspberry dark, dig into belt as if pressure could change metal's mind, and he whispers to the machine. The belt rides, 1 link, then the bent, catches for a blade of a second before pawls bully forward and the bolt strips clean enough to right a line. Mikhail repays with a burst he wills as 4, but makes 3. The lead German goes flat, slides backward with an exhale pressed through teeth. Adler feels landing go soft under his plan and hisses like a kettle. He pivots to pullback, but retreat through a kill margin is the same as a charge. It is still movement through 3 meters that punish timing. A tracer whips the landing from a deeper doorway and scratches the wall inches from Yuri's hair. He flinches, hands want to close, the exact thing that would gift a stoppage. He breathes and flattens fingers, knuckles arched like a bridge, sending the belt unbunched under the tray. Left hand does as trained, centimetering straight. The knife stays poised, the decision not to cut, held in one direction only, forward into whatever fails next. Ivana reads Adler's pivot and makes a vice of the stair's edge. She calls once, a number, 2, and Mikhail understands. 2 bodies moving in and out of his sector. He shades muzzle left, the next pair flatten into corridor like a lid. The second German, a tall silhouette with rifle slung, buckles into frame. She risks a third shot, mortar chips by the spindle. She knows the yard gun will shift back and their light will go out. Adler snatches a sleeve, hauls a collar like a shepherd with a dog that wants to chase, flings the man back into the doorway. He waves for smoke, if he has it. A clipped syllable says no. He curses cold that makes grenades slow, as it makes guns slow. He wanted this stare pinned predictable. Now it's a mouth biting back, and he is the one with fingers too close to teeth. Mikhail keeps cadence exact, 2 and 3, and the gun stops being a song and becomes a metronome nobody can dance to. Even the yard MG seems to pause between sweeps, listening for who leads. The belt snakes across broken tile, cloth dark with melted frost and Yuri's blood. Every link flex prints a tiny geometry in dust, a map of decisions. The receiver sounds smoother. Ice has been bullied to corners by heat and motion. He knows heat here is perverse. It smooths now and sticks later, and he lies to himself once more. Yuri feels the last suspect links pass under thumb. His hand stops fighting and begins to flow. He shifts focus to the next hazard banked in his head, the end of belt, the lurch when the run goes light and slaps. He glances into the box. Not abundance, but a last coil shallow as a puddle, a few seconds at their rate, eternity at the probe's aborted pace. He finds Ivana's eyes and taps twice on the box. Not panic. Notice? Ivana nods and edits. No sprint across. Pin, then reposition 2 steps up, taking altitude in bites. She taps a runner, trembling from withheld motion, and points to the stair spot that will be theirs when the belt goes dry. A backstop that makes the latch-in smooth and less suicidal. Her aggressive timetable burns. She drags its heat into discipline and feeds it to her hands. Adler, hearing a metronome that refuses silence, accepts his countersweep isn't here yet, and that time is now the enemy with a rifle. He pulls his men back on a count he slaps onto his hand. 1, 2, and they stumble because retreat in a landing feels like backing down a ladder blind. He shouts to the yard MG. Its sweep skews to cover exfil by accident or intent, but the angle is wrong and tracer combs dead air farther down. The last inches of belt slide and Yuri holds the tail to keep it from whipping because a whip shouts to anyone with ears that a machine emptied itself. Mikhail feels the feed go light and increases deliberate pressure as if he can will the last 3 to find 3 different bones. He lets the final pair sing with a grace he didn't know in him. The tail twitches once and goes still. Silence levels itself like water in a bucket, and in that still, everyone hears their own blood. For a beat that's a century or a blink, no one moves. Frost breath hangs in layers like smoke, and the yard hole draws a rectangle of morning blue. Ivana lifts an open hand. The squad falls back 2 steps as rehearsed when the radio died. No words, just boots and breath. Mikhail rests the gun just long enough not to betray emptiness with a clank. Yuri already has the next box, a battered one with a fresh dent. Under his knee, the starter tab peeled, and habit and fear tug him forward at once. His palm hits iron and sticks, skinned meat on cold steel. Pain slows him, a gift, and he senses the skew the dent demands and corrects because nerves tell him where straight truly is. He peels his hand free with a tiny squeak, blood going black, and presses the tab exactly. No rush, no misseat. The starter slides home like agreement. He looks to Mikhail, cheek on line as if he never moved, and to Ivana, who raises 2 fingers. 2 seconds? And Mikhail answers with a blink that means yes, and now. Adler hears new silence and imagines Soviet empty that is honest this time. He gambles that their box is dry and their courage thin with cold and blood and hours. He peeks with a pistol, lower profile, the yard MG giving him a smear of cover that cuts nothing. The peak buys him a clear view of stair, gun, woman, boy with belt. It is the last view he will get without paying, and it makes him lean too far into a shape that wants to bite. Mikhail nods to Yuri, clamps the lid. The gun is ready to speak again, if asked. He holds because bait is not fully swallowed. He waits for smallest things. Weight shift on a heel, mouth opening to drink new geometry, a half-inch lean that turns face to target. The world holds its breath with him. Then the heel shifts. The mouth opens and decides it shouldn't have. The roar returns like a door kicked into a party. Muzzle flash strobes plaster into a sky of stars. First rounds take the peak back into bone before it can learn. Yuri feeds like a man who learned a truth about straight lines and pain. His fingers make the belt a river that doesn't meander. Ivana drags fire a half-hand width to rake far jam where a shoulder had been. The man attached dissolves into the room, his brave decision ending in wall physics. He can't argue. The yard MG finally finds the right page, but it is too late to change the chapter. Its tracers lash the window, carving harmless grooves in light already bent by morning. Mikhail keeps bursts disciplined, 2 and 3, and lets the barrel breathe like a living thing, not a pipe to be corked with heat. The stair returns their sound, acoustics a cruel chorus. Every click and feed is a proclamation more terrible than words. We are not empty, and we will not be. Yuri looks down and sees, in the tile trough between boots, the bent link that almost ruined the morning, a little brass mouth twisted open, black oil glistening on it like a last meal. Steam lifts off the receiver into blue light, a thin ghost rising and vanishing in snow dust. Ivana touches the landing with 2 fingers, then points across and up. Next move is 2 steps forward or the crossing on her mark, and all 3 lean in to decide before the yard gun sweeps back.